Namaskar. My heartfelt gratitude to all of you for being here. The chosen prayer from the prayers and meditations written by the Mother. Today, the prayer is from May 25, 1914. It's almost 2 months since the Mother has arrived for the first time in Pondicherry. She arrived in Pondicherry on 29th of March. And 2 months have passed, and then this prayer is written by her. The title my limited mind gave it was Thy Pure, Flawless Crystal. Here there is a comparison, there is an analogy that the Mother is bringing out, that one needs to be like this pure, flawless crystal, the diamond crystal, which lets the light fall on it and illuminate. And nothing in this flawless crystal, there is not an iota of speck of anything dark in this. So only when one becomes like this pure, flawless crystal, the instrument becomes like this, then the divine work can really be carried out from this instrument. So what is a perfect instrument? What are those things which prevent us from turning into this perfect crystal or this perfect instrument? How does one remove the impurities? And in this prayer, something wonderful, very wonderful. The Mother is telling, there is a declaration by the Mother that the easiest way how to become this perfect instrument is the Mother herself. She is the one who is doing the sadhana in us, and that is the easiest way. By our own efforts, we will struggle. The path is going to be arduous. But the Mother being there, she carrying out the sadhana in us, all we need to do is just open to her and let her purify us. The Mother somewhere said, do not take my words to be for a teaching only. Always they are a force in action, uttered with a definite purpose, and they lose their true power when separated from that purpose. Now, when we look at these prayers and meditations, each of the prayers written by her, they have a very independent strain, something that she is feeling at the moment when she pens them down. So there is an independent, striking, very beautiful quality in each of the prayers. But when we look at these prayers and meditations in a composite way, in a consolidated way, when we look at all the prayers and meditations which the Mother has penned down, the triple status of the Mother's absolute reality come to the forefront. The 3 levels of the Mother's ascending reality. The first one being the personal and the individual. The second one is the collective and the universal. And the third being the transcendental, and one may say the suprapersonal. And very charmingly, very interestingly, in all these prayers, one more status emerges, which is not talked of, which is never talked about, and you will not find a mention, you can say, in a general way, in many of the writings. And that status is beyond the beyond. That is beyond this triple status. And what is that? It is the Mother's own relationship with the Supreme Master, her Lord. So the relation between the Supreme Lord and our own Mother, that is a status, that is their own Leela, exclusively their own. And it adds so much of charm and so much of a divine aroma to these prayers and meditations. In every prayer, she has referred to the Divine Master, the Sovereign Master, Sublime Master, my sweet Master. So this is another, you can say, a status which is beyond the beyond, of above the triple absolute realities, the ascending realities of the Mother. And in this particular prayer, as I said earlier, there is an open declaration by the mother herself that she is the one who is doing the sadhana in us. Not only in us, in plants, animals, even the material objects. So in the entire creation, it is she who is doing the sadhana. And the easiest way of becoming the perfect instrument is to open to her. So the prayer written by the mother on... Okay. No. Take it. Can I do it this way? Okay. The prayer on May 25, 1914, titled Thy Pure, Flawless Crystal. O Divine Master of love and purity, grant that in its least stages, its smallest activities, this instrument, which wants to serve Thee worthily, may be purified of all egoism, all error, all obscurity, so that nothing in it may impair, deform, or stop Thy action. How many little recesses lie yet in shadow, far from the full light of Thy illumination? For these I ask the supreme happiness of this illumination. Oh, to be the pure, flawless crystal which lets Thy divine ray pass without obscuring, coloring, or distorting it, not from a desire for perfection, but so that Thy work may be done as perfectly as possible. And when I ask Thee this, the I which speaks to Thee is the entire earth, aspiring to be this pure diamond, a perfect reflector of Thy supreme light. All the hearts of men beat within my heart, all their thoughts vibrate in my thought. The slightest aspiration of a docile animal or a modest plant unites with my formidable aspiration, and all this rises towards Thee, for the conquest of Thy love and light, scaling the summits of being to attain Thee, ravish Thee from Thy motionless beatitude, and make Thee penetrate the darkness of suffering to transform it into divine joy, into sovereign peace. All this violence is made of an infinite love, which gives itself, and a trustful serenity, which smiles with the certitude of Thy perfect unity. O my sweet Master, Thou art the triumpher and the triumph, the victor and the victory. So, when we look at this prayer as a whole, so who is praying and to whom? And who is the object of this meditation? The first apparent and obvious meaning that emerges is, yes, this is the mother's own prayer offered to her Lord, her beloved Lord. It is her own personal aspiration, the preoccupation of the individual human being that she is. It is her own inner song. It is her own inner story of all that she has been, all that she is now, and all that she has realized and experienced, and all that she is yet to achieve for the total purification of herself as an instrument. And why? So that the divine work may proceed through her. It is the mother's personal aspiration, yes. At once we see that. But we notice immediately that this is not an exclusively individual or an absolutely personal assertion that the mother is making. While speaking of herself spontaneously, she seems to be speaking on behalf of all mankind. The words that she utters comes as if they were coming from the lips of mankind. So, she is the representative human being, and being that, she gives expression to all that man requires to become a perfect instrument. We human beings, we do not even know how to articulate, because we do not even have that capacity on our own to even identify what is it that needs to be done, what is it that is wrong in me. It is she who brings it out. And this is how she is articulating all that we need to become, and through her we find this articulation. She is addressing, now let us look at this prayer bit by bit, and then we will see how profoundly she is bringing out all that needs to go away from us, and how she is pulling all these out from our being and turning us into the instrument that she wants us to do. O Divine Master, the first part, O Divine Master of love and purity. Look at the words, Master of love and purity. And when Mother writes something, every word is magnificent in itself, and every word is very pertinent to the whole prayer that she is writing. O Divine Master of love and purity, grant that in its least stages, its smallest activities, this instrument, which wants to serve thee worthily, may be purified of all egoism, all error, all obscurity, so that nothing in it may impair, deform, or stop thy action. She is addressing the Master as the Lord, the Master of love and purity. Why love? Because love is the most powerful, the most potent force which the Divine Himself has thrown out. He has plunged into the mud of inconscience to bring everything back to itself. This is His play. So, in order that the inconscient also turns into the divine, there are so many beings He has created out of Himself, and then there was an involution. But to save the entire creation and bring it back to Himself, love is the most potent power. And love is the power which can make us move upwards and towards the divine. And another power that the Mother is talking of here is purity, which according to the Mother is the best of powers. Purity is to accept only the divine influence in our life. On earth, true purity is to think as the divine thinks, to will as the divine wills, and to feel as the divine feels. So perfect purity is when one lives only for the divine and by the divine. Purity is perfect sincerity, we can say. And this purity, when does this purity become integral purity? Is that there is nothing in us which is preventing us from a perfect instrument of the divine. So integral purity is the total dissolution of the ego, when the entire being, the whole being, is purified of all ego. Right now, the divine will is working, but it is working, the limited instruments that we are, the limited beings that we are, the divine will is working, but it is working from behind a veil of the ego self and ignorance. And this leads to disharmony and disorder. which again leads to pain and suffering in the being. So, why is it that we are not able to see this divine will? How is it that the divine will, being divine will, is not able to act through us? It is only because our nature deflects and refracts, and while receiving it and also while executing it. You see, the ego is something that is essential for us to become a being first. Only when we become a being can we actually do the sadhana that is required of us. So, but what actually happens is it becomes an independent being, and so much independent that not ready to let go of the ego. Then the ego becomes a barrier. And at that stage, when we have individualized, when we have become a being, a conscious being, if the ego is there, the ego will divide, it separates, it deforms, it impairs, it distorts, it reflects, it deflects, and many things happen which will not let the divine will manifest through us. So the ego must go, and it must be replaced by light, the supreme light, light of knowledge, and humility. And the more and more the ego starts dissolving. Why the ego starts dissolving? When we open to more and more to the love of the divine. And only love has got the power that it can completely annihilate the ego and work. So, in one of our earlier prayers, the mother has clearly written that once one has attained that sublime identification with the soul reality, even after this union with the, you can say the soul reality, the sublime identification with the supreme consciousness, the perfection of the various states of the being is still mandatory, it is a must. And what are these states of being? The mental, the vital, the physical, the psychic. And this is where, in spite of the fact that the union with the soul reality is there, we realize, the realization is there. But this is where the task becomes very arduous. The different parts of the being are not ready all at once. Even after some parts are beautifully illuminated, there are other parts which are dimly lit, which are hiding, secretly hiding. And some are so subtle that even when we are in that very beautiful state of union with the divine, even at that particular point, there are some which are so tiny and so subtle and so dim that we are not able to spot them. Even the very fact that you become an instrument, yes, the grace is there, the instrument is moving more and more towards what the divine wants it to be, but all the parts are not getting illumined together, all at once. There is how many, mother goes on to say in the prayer, the next part of the prayer she says, and she brings out this thing that they are hiding. How many little recesses lie yet in shadow, far from the full light of thy illumination. For these I ask the supreme happiness of this illumination. Sri Aurobindo in Savitri writes something which is very similar to this. His soul, mind, heart became a single sun. Only life's lower reaches remained dim. The states of the being are not fully ready yet. So that is why the perfect illumination, the perfect instrument is not yet ready. Ordinarily, the different parts of the being are, you can say, differently developed, and they follow their own path, their own means, their own struggle. There is a lot of disharmony, there is a lot of clash of pursuits between all these individual parts again. An example, at night, those of us who are in the habit of putting everything to divine or meditating at night, we have this wonderful feeling, the day has passed very beautifully. One part, something has lit in us that we are even opening and telling this to the divine. And we realize that she is the Supreme Mother, she is all, and we are in that very, very beautiful state of you can say contemplation, reflection, and we know that the mother is there. Come morning, we get up, we go to office, and what happens? Do we still carry this feeling that we had in the night? What has happened? There are other parts of the being which have taken over. My job, my office, I need to do this. This is a task given to me. I need to make it perfect. I need to beautify it. I want perfection in work, so I will focus only on the work. But somewhere, that very nice state that we reached has got somewhere, camouflaged. But if we make it a habit, day-to-day habit, in remembering and offering everything to the mother, then it comes very fast, it comes automatically. But the point here is that there are parts which will pull down the other parts. And when the parts start becoming illuminated more and more, they themselves will have the power to bring these dim corners also towards light. It moves like a spiral, The more light comes, the more these dim corners also get lighted up, and they also want to aspire. Because obviously there is an inherent aspiration in everything. Even the inconscient, there is a cry from the inconscient to move towards that divine consciousness. So only when the divine light comes, touches those parts get illumined. But it is not a one-time process, only for the very, very, you can say, very enlightened beings who have come as the true instruments of the divine. Only in them you will see that immediately at once something happens that the being becomes a perfect instrument of the divine. But it is a slow process, and yes, the light of the mother is very essential. So it is for these dark, gloomy, hiding, the dim corners of the being that the mother is praying. And she is not praying for herself, she is praying for all of us. And then she says, when this illumination touches us, remember the night story? You opened to the mother and you felt so calm and peaceful. So when the light is actually pouring in and touching these corners, there is a joy. In this illumination, in each part there is a joy, there is an aha moment. And there are so many corners in us. So when one is getting illumined on this path, on the yogic path, there is tremendous joy, only we don't open to it. Every time we move towards a higher truth, there is a joy, there is a union with the divine. We realize the love of the divine more and more. So this illumination it brings, apart from the work that it is doing, that it is making the dim corners also lighted up, it is also bringing us a lot of joy. Oh, to be the pure, flawless crystal which lets thy divine ray, without obscuring, coloring or distorting it, not from a desire for perfection, but so that thy work may be done as perfectly as possible. So she is praying to become like this pure, flawless crystal, diamond crystal, where the work, what the divine wants for the manifestation, can go unhindered, unobstructed. She is praying for a state where the divine accomplishes the works through us. And even that small I-ness, that I am the instrument, I am the chosen one, even that she is saying that not from a desire of perfection. Perfection we are not seeking for ourselves. The perfection that the mother talks of is that utilizing everything that is available to you, all the resources and the divine help, we turn to the divine so that through us the divine work can be done. There is no I-ness. If the I-ness of the instrument is also there, then that itself will become an obstacle. When we look at a diamond in a raw state, it is very murky. It does not have that glitter or that splendor or that, that sparkle or that glitter. It looks very murky. Sometimes it comes in various colors. I think kimberlite is the ore from which you extract diamond. And if you look at it, it is very raw, it is very dull, it is very boring. But in order to, the purification of process of diamond also is very indicative, and it is very interesting. and places very well itself with this analogy that the mother is giving here. So the diamond in this first process of purification, when it is in the ore form, it is crushed. By crushing means it is broken into, the larger chunks are broken into smaller parts. So there is a, you can say chunking, or you can crushing, and you can relate it to that, okay, that high I that we are full of, that is getting beaten up now. And even when then there is a process of purification, and in the process of purification, interestingly, the ore which is crushed now, it is shaken up with graphite and a lot of clay and mud. And it is actually so. And when it is shaken up, after that, the pure crystal that we see, that comes. Of course, there are many more purification processes, but the basic is this. Now here again, it is mixed with mud and clay and graphite. But as long as it is there, it is needed for the purification. So all the sufferings, Sri Aurobindo says, all suffering, all turmoils, all trials and tribulations always lead us forward. They are a preparation. Preparation for something very nice, for that thing to become the perfect instrument of the divine. Everything is a preparation. Even Sri Aurobindo has said that all this suffering, all this, you can say, pain that we go through is all a preparation to open to the mother, to open to her light. And then the sadhana actually begins, when one opens to the mother. In diamond crystal, in the purified diamond crystal, that white, that glittering thing that we see, even if there is an atom, and it is a fact, even if there is an atom of another element, maybe nitrogen or carbon, it changes the color of the diamond. It is no longer white and glittering. It will take that hue of that, even that small atom, or even that small element that is there. It's just a single atom, can you imagine? It will also not give the diamond its perfect glitter. So even that has to go. So that is why the mother is talking about a pure, flawless crystal. There has to be no iota of ego anywhere. Only then the light will. And what happens? By itself, the diamond is just a diamond. But does it become that glittering diamond that can scatter all that light on itself? Even when it comes from the factory, it is not like that. The goldsmith, the hands of the master, cut it, shape it, and then it is ready for that glitter, for that illumination. And even when it is ready, by its own, can it scatter light? No. The light has to fall on it, pass through it, and come out of it. And when the light falls, even a single ray of light, when it falls, even a very small amount of light, when it falls on the diamond crystal, what comes out? A sparkle, more dazzling than the light that had touched it. So this is how the divine wants us to be. Wants us to be like, when there is an illumination, that illumination is not for my own being, my own thing as an instrument. It is for the divine manifestation. We are just an intermediary. And being an intermediary, what is our role? We have to collaborate in the process of divinizing matter. That is why we are here. The aggregate that I call myself is just an intermediary. And the divine has made it deliberately, has made us like this deliberately. The other day, we just had Yes Talk, where Dr. Alok Pandey spoke. He spoke about man being a transitional being. This is not the ultimate state. We are here for a purpose. And the divine has decided that purpose for us. The more we align ourselves to this light and to this, you can say, to this aim, and harmonize towards it, the work that is needed will go on. At the same time, like the mother says, the joy of illumination is ours. That is the fringe benefit. So the process also becomes very interesting. The process also can be full of happiness, knowing with certitude that it is the Divine Mother who is doing the sadhana in us. What do we need to fear? Let the pains and sufferings, they are hers. She will take care of it. They are finding utterance in her. In the next part, we will see that she is identifying completely with the earth consciousness. And it is not only that there is an identification with the earth consciousness, she is the earth herself and offering it like a mega instrument. So there is the matter getting divinized on earth is just a small part of the play. There are more things to come. We all talk of supramental. Supramental is not the end. Beyond that, we don't know. We are not even ready to even imagine or fathom what will come after that. But let it come first. And for that, we are the intermediary. We are conscious. Mother has made us conscious. The moment we say, Mother, Ma, I am a conscious being. The moment you open to her, everything that needs to come, all light that needs to come to you will come. All dark corners will be removed. Only with faith and total opening to the mother. The next part she says, and when I ask thee this, the I which speaks to thee is the entire earth, aspiring to be this pure diamond, a perfect reflector of thy supreme light, the perfect instrument. Now here is something very wonderful, something very magnanimous. She has totally identified with the earth consciousness and she is working for the upliftment so that the earth consciousness gets lifted. And then she goes on to say, all the hearts of men beat within my heart, all their thoughts vibrate in my thought. The slightest aspiration of a docile animal or a modest plant unites with my formidable aspiration. Formidable, strong, powerful, forceful. And this rises towards thee. So even a small aspiration we have, how does it grow? It doesn't grow on its own by our own limited efforts. It unites. She's saying that I join with that aspiration. My aspiration joins with that. Such a profound statement. Hearts of all the hearts of men beat within my heart. So we are all placed in her. And we are working by her. And through us, she is working. So she has clearly expressed her oneness with all the human beings, not only all the human beings, the docile plants and animals, the modest plants and animals. There are prayers where the mother has also written about the material things. She is praying for the material things. She is leaving that place, that house, and she is praying that the way I had looked after those material things, may they go into the right hands. So she is feeling, the divine feels for even the inanimate objects, the material, very material things. So it is the entire creation that she is offering. She is uniting with her own aspiration and she is becoming the aspiration. So she stands for the entire earth and all our sufferings, all our pain, our dilemmas, our confusions, they find utterance in her. And it is so clear in this prayer. Will we be able to even utter like this? Will we be able to even voice even a fraction of what she is uttering for us? So she knows us more than we know ourselves. Then she goes on to say, for the conquest of thy love and light. Again she is referring to the Supreme Master. For the conquest of thy love and light, scaling the summits of being to attain thee, ravish thee from thy motionless beatitude. Ravish, to be filled with joy and delight. That joy. From thy motionless beatitude, and make thee penetrate the darkness of suffering to transform it into divine joy, into sovereign peace. So, the divine work will anyway happen. You or me can't stop that. It is anyway going to happen. But in the process, what she is doing? She is taking care of the instruments also, even for the little joys that we have. She is saying, take joy. When I am working through you, open to it. Revel in it. And this is the fringe benefit of the illumination that she is giving us. And it is all free, and more. The more we open, the more we get it. And of course, the divine work will anyway go unhindered when we reach this state. She goes on to say, and interestingly, she uses the word violence in the next part. See. And this violence is made of an infinite love, which gives itself, and a trustful serenity which smiles with the certitude of thy perfect unity. Violence, something we don't associate with the mother's love, neither the master's love. So why it is? Penetrating the darkness and plunging into the inconscience, of which we are largely that. So plunging into the mud of inconscience, into our beings, pulling out, illuminating all the dark, stubborn, recalcitrant, resistant corners. It is not an easy job even for the divine. It is not easy. It requires tremendous force and it requires tremendous energy. And one may think that so much of force and power, will we be able to do it on our own? The very fact that the power which leaped out from the heart of the divine into the inconscience, right at the beginning of the creation, was it a small power? It was the most powerful of all powers that sprung out, that leaped out. And the force with which it leaped out, maybe that is why Mother is using the word violence over here. It is not an easy task. It is an arduous task. Even in an individual, for all the corners to open, all the parts of the being to harmonize around a central idea, it is not easy. So it requires tremendous force. So what is the supreme state? The supreme state is and what is that perfect, you can say the state of purity, when the instrument is totally devoid of all ego. And this allows the perfect union. So one can say that what is it that will tell us that yes, we are now getting ready to be the perfect instrument, or what is the indicative of the perfect instrument? So there is only one thing, that the entire being is filled with the love of the mother. When love encompasses, you get drowned in that love totally, and then there is no place for ego. Mother is going to make sure. And for those very dark, resistant, recalcitrant corners which refuse, which disobey her, what happens? She will give you a nice bath, a scrub. And in that, this soap bath, bubbles, I'm sure you must be knowing that when the soap works, how does it work? Water is there, and this soap, it forms tiny, you can say globules or micelles they are called. And the dirt gets trapped into them. And with the water, it is flushed out. So dirt by itself cannot go. It has to be captured and it has to be thrown out. It has to be flushed out. And so for those recalcitrant corners and all, Mother will make sure that there is no ego. The moment you open to her, you may forget her. She is not going to forget you. She is going to make sure that once you have turned to her, once you have committed to her, once you have even fleetingly said, Ma, and I turn to you, she will never leave your side. And whatever is required, she will do it in you. Giving you a good bath, a scrub, yes, she will do that also. But then, after the bath, we feel so fresh, isn't it? We feel so nice. And often we'll jump into the lap of the mother and say, okay, Mother, I'm ready for the meal now that you're going to give me. That's what a child does. The child initially is very hesitant to go into the bath and he's screaming and yelling and shouting, screaming. But after the bath, it feels so nice and it's so calm. And it is ready to, just be in the lap of the mother. So she is doing the sadhana in us. And if we open to her in all sincerity and in all purity, that integral purity, why will the ego remain there? Ego has no place then. So, in that perfect state, Ma is in and Ma is out. And very beautiful lines from the Savitri in Book 3, Canto 2, which somehow it kind of summarizes this entire prayer that the mother is doing the sadhana in us. And the mother, interestingly, we see when I spoke of that status which is beyond this triple status, the individual, the collective, and the transcendental. It is the relationship between the Supreme Lord and the Divine Mother. Sri Aurobindo in his Savitri, he has clearly stated, only he and she. The universe is only he and she. And the mother is writing this prayer in 1914. And what Sri Aurobindo wrote was many years later. The part that I am going to read out from book 3, Canto 2. So beautiful. At the head, she stands of birth and toil and fate. In their slow round, the cycles turn to her call. Alone her hands can change time's dragon base. Hers is the mystery the night conceals. The spirit's alchemist energy is hers. She is the golden bridge, the wonderful fire. The luminous heart of the unknown is she, a power of silence in the depths of God. She is the force, the inevitable word, the magnet of our difficult ascent. The sun from which we kindle all our suns, the light that leans from the unrealized vasts, the joy that beckons from the impossible, the might of all that never yet came down. All nature dumbly calls to her alone, to heal with her feet the aching throb of life, and break the seals on the dim soul of man, and kindle her fire in the closed heart of things. This Sri Aurobindo is writing maybe 20 years later, from 1914 that the mother has written this, where she herself is declaring that she is doing the sadhana. And in the lines that we just heard, Sri Aurobindo has written about it. Interestingly, he invokes her in Savitri, and she, much earlier, is invoking him in this prayer, in all her prayers, in fact. She says, the last part says, "O my sweet master, thou art the triumpher and the triumph, the victor and the victory." And many years later, Sri Aurobindo penned down, when he's penning down Savitri, he writes, "He is the player who becomes the play. He is the thinker who becomes the thought." So is it not a divine Leela? What she is uttering, and she is telling all of us that she is the one who is doing the sadhana. Sri Aurobindo is also telling us that. And he said that my yoga would have remained incomplete and very personal had the mother not come in. And we see so many, we are very puny to even understand how they worked, what they actually brought down, how much they suffered, and what is the yoga, their yoga, that they did amongst themselves. So this is one prayer I feel that the triple status of the mother, about her three absolute realities, the states of her being, and then this beyond thing, that she is referring to the Divine Master as the Master of love and purity. And she's saying, you are the victor and the victory. You are the triumpher and the triumph. So this makes this prayer very profound. There are prayers and meditations where there are different angles of her reality that come out. But in all prayers, we will find that she has again and again referred to the love of the divine, and she herself is invoking the divine. And it becomes very clear in all her prayers that she is not doing it for herself. She is doing it for all of us. And this is how the prayers become very, very universal nature.